Every single day, humanity captures billions of digital photographs. The sheer volume of visual data we produce in 24 hours is almost incomprehensible. Yet, the company that made this modern reality possible, the corporate titan that invented amateur photography, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2012. The popular narrative treats Kodak like a stubborn dinosaur. The story goes that they simply missed the digital transition because their executives couldn't see the future approaching. But the historical timeline reveals a different reality. In 1975, a Kodak engineer named Steven Sasson built a working prototype of a battery-operated, handheld device. It was the world's first digital camera, and Kodak owned the patents. They had the technology decades before anyone else. Why would a global monopoly deliberately bury the exact invention that would eventually destroy them? In the late 19th century, taking a photograph was a grueling physical task. Professionals hauled heavy glass plates and toxic chemicals into the field, forcing their subjects to sit perfectly still for long exposures. In 1888, George Eastman solved this mechanical problem. He introduced a simple, lightweight box camera that came preloaded with a flexible roll of film. Suddenly, the art of photography was portable and cheap. During the Boer War at the turn of the century, everyday soldiers carried cameras into the field to document their own lives. By the First World War, this new snapshot culture had taken firm root. Even when military commanders issued strict orders banning cameras for security reasons, soldiers actively defied them, smuggling pocket-sized devices into the trenches of the Western Front. Eastman drove this mass adoption using a specific pricing strategy. He sold the initial box camera at a very low cost, absorbing the expense to put a device in as many hands as possible. This diagram illustrates the razor and blade strategy. The camera was merely a hook. Once a consumer owned it, they were locked into a recurring cycle of film and chemical sales that generated high-margin revenue year after year. This strategy built an empire. Kodak grew so massive that it constructed its own welfare capitalist city in Rochester, New York, complete with sprawling factories, a private railroad, and guaranteed lifetime benefits for thousands of employees. The success of this model created a dangerous corporate psychology. The leadership at Kodak looked at their balance sheet and concluded their survival depended entirely on the continued dominance of physical film. Fast forward back to 1975. Steven Sasson walks into a boardroom and places his new digital prototype on the table for Kodak executives. The device captures images on an electronic sensor. It requires no development process, no wet turnistry, and zero consumable film. The executives in the room realized that digital photography didn't just represent a new product. It represented the total elimination of the chemical recurring revenue model that sustained their empire. Rather than embrace the invention, management shelved it. To protect against eventual losses in the film division, they poured billions into diversification, buying up pharmaceutical companies and trying to corner the market on expensive printer ink. While Kodak tried to protect its chemical plants, companies like Fujifilm, Canon, and Sony looked at the emerging digital landscape and immediately started manufacturing the hardware. Kodak's engineers were brilliant enough to invent the digital future, but executives were trapped by a business model making it financially impossible to embrace it. In the early 2000s, global digital photo capture exploded, while Kodak's film revenue entered a terminal freefall. Desperate, Kodak pivoted to digital hardware manufacturing. But as the data shows, profit margins flatlined below the break-even point. They sold cameras at a loss to compete. The final blow arrived in 2007. The smartphone absorbed the standalone camera into a device people already carried in their pockets, erasing Kodak's last chance at a hardware comeback and forcing the 2012 bankruptcy. The historical irony is that George Eastman's original vision was a complete success. He wanted to democratize photography and make documenting human life as easy as pressing a button, and it actually happened. Kodak's leadership focused on maintaining the complex industrial infrastructure required for chemical manufacturing, overlooking the fact that consumers were only interested in the utility of the resulting image. When a company's leadership refuses to disrupt their own highly profitable operations, the market will eventually do it for them.